Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Game Logic from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, one of the co-hosts of the Enough to Keep Going weekly video games podcast on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube, back with another episode of Gaming Outside the Algorithm. This is episode number 8 for Thursday, the 12th of February, 2026. Without much further ado, let's get to it. Extremely compressed episode today, and I haven't had as much time to prepare show notes. In fact, I only had time to really pull the thread on additional details on one article, so everything else is going to be off the cuff and on the fly. So, like I said, without much further ado, let's get to it. First news story in the rundown: Square Enix revenues continue to decline over past 9 months in $1.3 billion to $1.3 billion. This news story over on GameIndustry.biz by Sophie McAvoy. Square Enix has published its financials for the 9 months ending December 31st, 2025, reporting further declines in net sales due following... Great Scott. Square Enix has published its financials for the 9 months ending December 31st, 2025, reporting further declines in net sales due following a shortfall in earnings from new titles. It's a weird sentence construction. The numbers for the 9 months ended December 31st, 2025, net sales $1.3 billion, down 13.3%. Profit $163.4 million, up 3.6%. So in similar vein to the PlayStation earnings, where net sales was down, but profit was up. Digital entertainment net sales $717 million, down 23.7%. The highlight: Square Enix attributed the overall decline in net sales to a lack of revenue from new titles. However, it recorded a 39% increase in operating income at $295.7 million due to higher sales of catalog titles. Its digital entertainment segment followed a similar trajectory, with net sales dropping 23.7% year over year, while its operating income rose $226.6 million. We'll skip the MMO segment, games for smart devices. Square Enix did note, however, that operating income increased as a result of diversification of payment methods. The developer has revised its consolidated financial forecast for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2026, as results for the 9-month period have already exceeded its expectations. This change was attributed to improved profitability in the digital entertainment business, as well as the recognition of royalty income in the rights and properties business that exceeded initial assumptions. Net sales forecast has not changed. They do expect increased profit. So look, my primary take on this is that Square Enix obviously made very much ado last year about shifting from doing exclusives for the PlayStation platform to following a multi-platform strategy. And my cut is, at this point, that strategy has not borne fruit. And so maybe it needs some more time. I'm not sure. They attribute their increased profit to two things. They say higher sales of catalog titles. And they also mention, I thought they mentioned lower costs. Operating income increased as a result of diversification of payment. So they attributed their increased profitability to a few things: higher sales of catalog titles, diversification of payment methods, improved profitability in the digital entertainment business, and then recognition of royalty income in the rights and properties business that exceeded initial assumptions. Their profitability increased, but their net sales did not. And so when I look at the 4 different things that they attributed it to, my belief is that most of that came from the recognition of royalty income and rights and properties. And so that's licensing, merchandising, things outside the game's sales value stream and business, because it's not typical for you to lose sales, right, in software when you're only a software company. Because when we talked about PlayStation, they were down on net revenue but up on profitability, and that makes sense if your hardware business has suffered some setbacks, but your software business is overperforming, and that's what we saw with PlayStation. But Square Enix is predominantly a software only business, and so if that primary product software is on the decline, but their profitability increases. The profitability at scale most likely comes from the thing that is not experiencing challenges in just making straight sales. So we'll continue to take a look at this. I think the reality with Square Enix, as I've always said, is that, number one, I don't think that they're a particularly fiscally disciplined company. I think they encounter challenges because they can't run budgets, they cannot make sales forecasts, and they can't produce product on schedule. I think those three things are the causality for them always experiencing challenges. So many times, the challenges that they experience are chalked up to, well, they shouldn't have made an exclusive deal with PlayStation. And I'm like, I don't care whether you make an exclusive deal or don't make an exclusive deal. If you can't maintain fiscal discipline, you can't run a schedule, and you can't get product out on time, then who cares? Back in the day when you could take forever to make any game, right, that labeled Final Fantasy, and it sold Banga, then you could behave that way. But in more challenging fiscal times, when that brand name does not carry the water that it used to, then you start seeing things like this. And since Final Fantasy has become a title that is not nearly as much in the zeitgeist as it used to be, these behaviors are the things that are causing them the challenges. I don't think it's whether or not they make exclusive deals or not. But we will continue to keep an eye on it. Next news story I want to go to over on GameSpot. PlayStation State of Play confirmed for February 12th. The first State of Play of 2026 is close. This news story over on GameSpot by Jason Finelli. After some rumors in the past couple of weeks that it was in the works, the first PlayStation State of Play of 2026 has been confirmed for February 12th. That's today. At 5 p.m. Eastern Time, official PlayStation social media accounts have confirmed not only the date and timing of the event, but also that it will include 60-plus minutes of news, gameplay updates, and announcements from game studios across the globe. No word on what that 60-plus minutes will include has been confirmed by Sony, nor by any third-party developers. Now, since this article dropped, we expect to see things like MLB The Show. Saros launches, I think, next month. So those things are relatively sure bets. Guerrilla Games obviously just announced its Horizon Hunter's Gathering game. And you've got Resident Evil right around the corner, and they've been showing quite a lot. I expect Resident Evil to show today because they just showed at the Nintendo Partner Direct, I guess, last week, I think. And then PlayStation has had a very close relationship with IO Interactive and showcasing 007 First Light, so I expect that game to show up as well. Now, things that we have heard in the intervening time, we won't get to that yet, is that Wolverine will not be at the State of Play. This news story over on Eurogamer by Victoria Phillips Kennedy. Sorry, but don't expect to see Wolverine at tomorrow's PlayStation State of Play. When Sony first announced State of Play for tomorrow, 12 February, it said the show would last for over 60 minutes and include news, gameplay, updates, and announcements. Many soon assumed and hoped this lengthy broadcast would include a look at Insomniac's Wolverine, which was first teased back in 2021 during a PlayStation showcase. But there was some Twitter activity, and basically a fan asked whether or not the game would be seen today. However, it now appears that this won't be the case after all. Replying to one fan on social media who asked when we would all hear and see more from Logan and company, Insomniac replied with a very to-the-point spring 2026. So it sounds like they're spooling up for a separate showcase sometime in March, April, or May. Now, I don't find this particularly unusual. Actually, I find it a little bit unusual in terms of even that to me would be early. When it's the release year for a PlayStation game, I feel like, I could be wrong, that what we've seen over the last few years is that PlayStation will put something out and have a big ta-da about that game within about 6 months of it launching. And I didn't get a chance to look at the date right before, but I think Wolverine is like October, or maybe the date's not announced yet. Obviously, everybody's scrambling around GTA 6, which I think is November. So, it's about, we'll get, so probably this is an October release, so showing something about April would make sense to me. When it was Spider-Man 2, they showed something at Summer Games Fest in the June timeframe for that game releasing in October. That was even closer to the launch date, and then Ragnarok obviously was even later and even closer to the launch date. So I don't think this is particularly surprising. It is maybe a wee bit surprising, one might think, in terms of, it's their winter show, and this big game that we know is coming is not being shown. But again, if you think of Wolverine the same as Spider-Man, I'm pretty sure they didn't show Spider-Man in their February state of play either. That they showed it over the summer, the year that it released. So I don't think it's that surprising. Let's go ahead and talk about this other news article over on Nintendo Life by Jim Norman. UK charts Dragon Quest VII Reimagined starts strong, but it's not enough to reach the top. The latest UK charts are in, and what do you know? There are a few newcomers sprinkled into the mix this time. The biggie for us Switch fans is the arrival of Dragon Quest VII Reimagined, which enters the chart at 4th with 37% of sales coming from Switch 2 and 22% stemming from Switch 1. Koei Tecmo's Neo 3 debuts one spot ahead of it in 3rd, and the latest My Hero Academia joint cropped up in 27th, not that either is available on Switch. Right up at the top, EA Sports FC 26 has finally scored another winner. It made a huge leap from last week's 15th position to nab the gold this time, even pushing Mario Kart World down a peg. Here's the full top 40 with platform breakdowns for games available on Switch 2 and other consoles. Now, every once in a while, whenever I do like the UK charts or the Japan charts, people ask questions, or I don't know, people feel a certain way or have opinions. When I do it on this show or on E2KG, look, I think it's important for us to look at these international charts. Too often we fall into the rut of only looking at the US charts. As I've mentioned last week, the U.S. is a significant percentage of the global PC and console gaming market. So, different, figures will differ depending on what data sources you look at, but typically the numbers hover around the U.S. being 52% of the global console market and 17% of the PC market. The U.S. and China combined formulate about 50%. So, 50% of the global overall gaming market, inclusive of mobile. Those are two different figures. So 17% of the PC market, then U.S. and China combined are about 50% of the global overall gaming market, inclusive of mobile. And so while the U.S. is large, we are, number one, definitely not the regional growth market. That's APAC, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago. And number two, other demographics and economies do impart a dynamic on the market that gaming companies do have to pay attention to now that we are in a globalized economy. And the console market is facing challenges in the West. And so they really need to be looking at Eastern countries, again, at APAC, to kind of look to see where they can grow. So with all that said, let's take a look at the UK charts. I rattled off some of the highlights. But one of the things that I found interesting here was that Dragon Quest VII Reimagined has parity with sales on PS5 and Switch 2. So one thing I like about these UK charts is you get to see the percentage split between the platforms. And so when we look at Dragon Quest VII Reimagined, we see 38% on PlayStation 5, 37% on Switch 2, and then 22% on Switch. So in aggregate, actually exceeding the sales on PlayStation 5, and then even just with Switch 2, they're at parity. And so it's kind of even more impressive if sales on the Switch 2 outside of Japan are supposedly lagging OG Switch sales time aligned, even though total numbers are up in comparison to the original Switch time aligned. So now one thing I will say is I think it's not listed in this article. I think where they get these charts from GFK, I think these are physical sales. And so there may be a slight skew one way or the other because the Switch, and probably Switch continuing on Switch 2, that consumer base has much more affinity for physical sales than PlayStation does. PlayStation obviously has more preference for physical sales than Xbox does. So there may be, a small percentage shift one way or the other, but regardless, it's pretty impressive. Other titles in the top, so EA Sports FC 26 in at number 1, Mario Kart World in at number 2, and again, these are the charts for the UK. Neo 3 in at number 3, Dragon Quest VII Reimagined in at number 4, Animal Crossing New Horizons at 5, Pokemon Legends ZA at 6, Minecraft at 7, Grand Theft Auto at 8, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 9. Trying to do a quick scroll and see if anything else really jumps out at me. Monster Hunter Wilds in at 15. I think this chart also goes down to 40. I don't know that we need to go that deep. Metroid Prime 4 in at 22. Ghost of Yotei at 21. Battlefield 6 at 20. I don't know. Is Call of Duty in this chart? Yeah, Call of Duty is in at number 11. Witcher 3 continuing to sell well in very late tail. Cyberpunk 2077 in at 25. PGA Tour 2K25 in at 32. So apparently the Brits like golf too, because that game has done some really good numbers even in the US as well. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade in at number 33. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like mini sales on Xbox. It may not be available in physical form on Xbox in the UK. So I thought those. I always think those charts are pretty interesting, just as kind of a measure and a data point to see, compare to the other charts. Because sometimes, a lot of people, a lot of other content creators who aren't based in the U.S. I know Falky, who's a fellow content creator of mine and who I co-star with on a few other podcasts, sometimes, reminds us that, the UK is not the U.S. is not the entire world, and we shouldn't only look at the U.S. charts. So, but we've been looking at UK and Japanese charts for a very long time, even before I met Falky. So, this news story, and I didn't actually get a chance to look at this, so you're gonna get to see a live Google, because I wanted to follow up on this news story. So supposedly, the Steam Decks are out of inventory, or at least they were as of this morning. Yeah, they are listed as out of stock. You'd still get the Steam docking station, though, without a Steam Deck, I guess. So this news story over on Kotaku by Zach Zwiesen, it's becoming impossible to buy a Steam Deck. Valve's popular handheld PC is sold out, and people are getting nervous about what this means for the future. If you woke up this morning thinking, hey, I'm going to finally buy a new Steam Deck, you likely ran into problems. The console-like handheld PC from Valve is sold out on the company's official store, and people are nervous that it may be a grim omen of things to come rather than a momentary hiccup. Late last night on February 10th, people noticed that the OLED versions of Valve's Steam Deck were sold out. Now, over 12 hours later, the Steam Deck is still sold out on Valve's official store page for the device. The older LCD version is also sold out, though that's to be expected since Valve previously announced in 2025 that it had stopped producing that model. But the OLED version of the Steam Deck, which comes in two flavors, 512GB or 1TB, are supposed to be available for the foreseeable future. Over in Japan, the Steam Deck is also reportedly sold out, but the store page claims a restock in late February. So obviously, I won't even call them conspiracy theories, because there may be a bit of truth to them. Is the fear is that component pricing or something is making it difficult to obtain a Steam Deck. Is making it difficult for Valve to produce them, or that supply chain has been disrupted, and there's a temporary slowdown on getting an order fulfilled or something like that. It would be great if this wasn't going on and we could all thirstily speculate that maybe Valve was getting ready to launch the Steam Deck 2 as a surprise or a shadow drop. One thing I want to check is, are there Asus ROG Xbox Allies in stock? It does look like, at least in my area, or actually, I think I'm not checked in on, and of course I have location off on my systems, but it looks like, at least at the national level, they're available somewhere. ROG Xbox Ally 7. Now this is the base. This is not the Ally X. The Ally X is also available. So apparently something, at least for the time being, isolated to just impacting Valve. So not sure what's going on. Hopefully we'll hear word about that in the next week or so. Over on Nintendo Everything by Brian. Famitsu sales, February 2nd through February 8th. First week sales revealed for Dragon Quest VII Reimagined. So we took a look at the UK sales a little bit earlier. Now let's take a look at Japan. The latest Japanese hardware sales from Famitsu as follows. I'm not going to go into those. Switch 2 selling Bonga like 66,000 units. It's like 75,000 total units between Switch 2, Switch Lite, and Switch. PlayStation is in at I want to say like 11,000 units, 12,000 units, and Xbox at like 1,000, 1,100 units. The software charts. Dragon Quest VII Remastered. Now, this is what I found really impressive. Dragon Quest VII Remastered. Of course, it's Japan, JRPG. You would hope it would sell well. Dragon Quest VII Reimagined. In at number 1. Dragon Quest VII Dragon Quest VII Reimagined on Switch. On OG Switch in at number 1. Dragon Quest VII Reimagined on Switch 2 in at number 2. Dragon Quest VII Reimagined on PS5 in at 3. And between the three platforms, it's about 450 million units sold. So about, I'm sorry, 1,000 sold. So about 500,000 units just in Japan. And so if the game is also selling well overall in the APAC region, and obviously then you combine US sales, we're probably north of 1 million units, maybe around 2 at this point. So, good launch for Square Enix. Good to see them doing well. Neo 3 in at number 4 on PlayStation 5. No PC. I don't see any PC platform things in here. And Neo 3 is only available on PS5 and PC right now. Mario Kart World in at number 5. Animal Crossing New Horizons on Switch at 6. On Switch 2 at 7. Momotaro Dentetsu 2 in at 8. Pokemon Legends ZA at 9. And Kirby Air Raiders in at 10. So basically nothing in this chart but Nintendo Switch, Switch 2, and PS5. And most of them, PS5 is only 2 titles. Now, again, I suspect that what this is that these are physical sales. And obviously, again, the Switch 2 user base leans very much more so into physical. This news story over on Nintendo Life, also by Ollie Reynolds, and so Ubisoft earnings are out. Assassin's Creed has overperformed this quarter, says Ubisoft. Ubisoft has released its financial report for Q3 2026, and despite expectations, it's actually not all doom and gloom. In fact, the firm states that the Assassin's Creed franchise has overperformed this quarter, noting that year-on-year growth in active users is in double digits. The release of Assassin's Creed Shadows on the Switch 2 has been cited as a contributing factor, which Ubisoft says enabled the title to broaden its audience. It also mentions the Valley of Memory update for Assassin's Creed Mirage, which launched in November 2025. So again, I want to point to what I constantly point to with Ubisoft, which is that I don't know why, I don't get it, I don't necessarily know that it's fiscally responsible or not, but they put content out and then they stick to it. Give me just 1 second, sorry. So sorry, I realized I had one dorked up thing with my overlay, so I wanted to get that fixed. But yeah, so again, people have a rather mid opinion of Assassin's Creed Mirage, even though it was Ubisoft's attempt to cater to what is now its kind of bifurcated Assassin's Creed fan base, which is they have a bunch of people who actually like the open world stuff, as proven by the fact that those games sell incredibly well, and then it has a bunch of people who claim that they prefer the legacy Assassin's Creed stuff, even though I would contend for Assassin's Creed Mirage, those people who claim that didn't really show up. Now, the assertion is that, well, because Assassin's Creed Mirage wasn't that good. Okay, maybe. I don't know. But, people don't have, like, a glowing critical take on Assassin's Creed Mirage at scale. But again, here's Ubisoft, like, still really, putting out DLC for the game to cater to the people who do like it. And I think there are some people who do like it, even though maybe it wasn't large numbers. They're obviously pushing ahead with their big company restructure, and we've covered that a lot. Yves Guillemot, co-founder and chief executive officer, stated the following: "We delivered a solid third quarter performance with net bookings growing at a double-digit rate year on year, exceeding our expectations. This performance reflects the strength of our portfolio and the breadth of player engagement across our core franchises, supported by recent releases and live content updates that continue to resonate with players. In parallel, we are making progress on the transformation announced in January. The allocation of studios and capabilities across the creative houses and network is so." He's just stumping for the big reorg. Vantage Studios has been operational since October, and we are preparing for the rest of this new operating model to start running in early April. The author here suggests that it's looking more and more likely that a remaster remake of Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag will launch in the near future. An art book for the release was spotted on Amazon UK, giving us yet another clear indication of the game's existence. And yeah, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag remaster remake is probably the worst kept secret in the gaming industry right now. Two other articles, more specific to their overall earnings. Over on Reuters, Ubisoft confirms targets after strong Assassin's Creed bookings. To confirm its full year financial targets on Thursday. Net bookings, we already covered that, up 12% year on year. Maintained its forecast for full year bookings of around 1.5 billion euros and an operating loss of roughly 1 billion euros. Ouch. Ubisoft shares have fallen more than 80% from their 2018 peak as the company grappled with game delays, weak execution, and investor concerns over its ability to return to profitability. Guidance remains the same, as we mentioned. The guidance was initially announced in January when Ubisoft unveiled a reorg that included canceling 6 games and closing studios in Halifax, Canada, and Stockholm. The company had originally projected 1.9 billion euros in bookings before the January overhaul, which split operations into 5 genre-focused divisions called creative houses. The appointment of this is something I've been looking for. The appointment of creative house leadership will start in March and include external hires of industry veterans, Ubisoft said. Super interesting. Ubisoft, also behind the Far Cry franchise, said its brands attracted around 130 million unique active users across consoles and PC in 2025. The third quarter's outperformance was driven by solid performance from Assassin's Creed Shadows, which launched on Nintendo Switch 2 in December. Ubisoft said it expects cash reserves of between 1.25 billion and 1.35 billion euros by end March, sufficient to cover a bond maturity of just over 500 million euros due in November 2027. CFO Frederic Duget said in a call the company is looking at several options to extend the average maturity of its debt beyond that date. The company's total debt stood at 1.15 billion euros at end September. So that's not horrible. It could be worse as far as their equity to debt ratio. In this last news story, wanted to compound. 1,200 Ubisoft workers strike in response to recent restructuring. Update. Ubisoft has responded to the strike, saying that 538 staff had reported themselves as being on strike. It also issued a statement. Key thing here is 538 staff reported themselves as being on strike, but the union claims 1,200 people were on strike. The transformation announced by Ubisoft aims to open a new chapter, designed to enable teams, blah, blah, blah. We understand these changes, particularly those affecting work organization, are generating strong feelings. I don't think it's so much the reorg. I think it's the return to work mandate and the lack of raises over the last few years. Now, the reason I call this into question is because, again, the Solidaires Informatique and its union representative, Marc Rouchelet, are very bullish that Ubisoft management doesn't know what they're doing. They've completely lost touch. Yves Guillemot, his quote, here it is again. At this stage, it seems clear to us that Yves Guillemot has no knowledge or understanding of his company or its employees. Rouchelet claimed that he was shutting this whole thing down. And again, every time he comes up with numbers of like things they're going to do, I find that it's a much softer response. He claimed here 700 workers at Ubisoft went on a 3-day strike. The number here reported is 14. Then there's another report that it's 1,200 workers. And then, like I said, the very first strike he called for, or the union called for, 10 people turned out. So I just don't know that the temperature for it is as hot as Rochelet and the union claims it is. And I'm not saying that they're not justified. I'm saying it's hard for me to read the temperature on just how many people are unjustified. I think maybe the truth is that there's more people who understand, not that they understand what the company's doing, but they understand what's happening. That they understand that this is going to happen. People are going to be impacted. But I think what's maybe more realistic is that people's stance is that it's really good to have a job in the gaming industry if you can keep a job. And I think maybe a lot of people are concerned about, like, let's hold on. Let me first focus on keeping my job. So we'll see. Unfortunately, that's all that I have time for today. Like I said, extremely compressed schedule. Obviously, State of Play tonight, 5 p.m. Brap and I will be doing a post wrap up of that show tonight at 9:30 p.m. So hope to see you then. Until next time. Thanks so much for. I'm a little frazzled, so I'm trying to rush because I have a meeting here soon. So anybody who swings through, I appreciate you. Please feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can just receive a notification whenever I post new content. Until next time, my name has been Game Logic from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, one of the co-hosts of the Enough to Keep Going weekly video games podcast on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube. The show airs 8 p.m. Sunday nights Eastern Time. Until next time, good night, good luck, and good gaming. That's going to do it for me. I'm out of here.